Hello there. Today we continue the Alpine adventure without an interruption, as I've kind of been struggling a little bit with my next video that isn't Alpine related. So we're going to do Alpine today, and I'm going to come back to that hopefully tomorrow. With that said, last time around we finished up the second season. We simmed our way through it. We ended up in a very strong fourth place in the end. And at the start of this year, the board now is expecting us to do that once again, that fourth place finish. Now, because this second year is incredibly important in terms of research, because this is where we're going to get hit by that big regulation change happening, we are going to be focusing a lot on research and how you can basically make a rocket ship going into the third season. But I am going to, in the future, most likely go through a kind of season guide video where I make a more balanced build. I believe Mike has made his build already, so we might make something similar. That is also a plan in the future. Now, with that said, we're just going to jump straight into this. Our car currently is not looking amazing. 11th, 15th, 17th, as mentioned last time. But I think by the time we come to Bahrain here, we might have a car that can snatch us a couple of points. That's going to be the goal, at least. If you enjoyed this series so far, please like and subscribe if you haven't. That helps me out a ton. Now, in terms of sponsors here, again, Star, we want to probably pick one that has a good race package, because that is generally the easiest funding you can get. I personally think so. However, if you struggle with that, it's perfectly fine to pick an engagement funding source, but keep in mind, the more engagement you get, the harder it's going to get to get the full sum. So I just prefer race day, because the way the race day funding is calculated is based on your overall car performance, which currently generally always puts your car way down from where it actually is, which makes this a very simple thing to do most of the time. For secondary sponsors, we're going to continue that trend and add to the race day payouts if we can. Also going to pick some overall sponsors that kind of give us a little bit of everything. We do have a little bit of money here, but it wouldn't hurt to improve our upfront funding a little bit. We're probably going to pick this one right here. This one has a little bit more money, but it also has a mentality and development rate hit for one of the 6 periods. Sorry, 8 periods, 6 periods. One of our sponsorship periods is going to get hit by a debuff, so let's go ahead and pick the one that doesn't come with any strings. For the last two here, let's see here. There's engagement. Again, I don't really enjoy engagement too much, but we're probably going to pick 2 engagement goals here. We'll pick the ones that don't really have a mandatory activity. They don't really pay out as much, but I just feel like it makes your life a little bit easier. There we are. Sponsor cap for this year, 93 million. We get 14 up front, which means that we have about 16 or so million to develop a car. And we also have 50 million in race day funding. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Now, at the start of the season, you're going to have to make a couple of choices in how we are going to develop our car. Generally, the way that I like to do it is that I like to try and have a completely new car ready by the time we go into Bahrain. First, I just want to take a look here and see where our expertise levels lie in order to make a decision on what we should upgrade. For the chassis, the 2 stats that we're interested in, drag reduction and airflow, are around 60%. Front wing, we see that this is around 66%. This would translate to almost 70%, so both of these are 67 to 70%, which is pretty high. Rear wing, not really great here, let's be honest. This also translates to about 60%, which is one of the stats that we want. So the rear wing here has suffered a little bit compared to the front wing. Maybe needs a little bit of love. Side pods, 65 and 56% with 60% drag reduction. Pretty good. The underfloor has around 60 to 65% across the board when it comes to cornering. Nothing too terrible. And suspension, Again, the main thing we focus on this suspension is actually drag reduction and tire preservation. You don't get too much cornering from this year's suspension. And I have been using cornering builds on the suspension so far this year. It's basically because I feel like the cornering has been more valuable, but tire preservation does seem to actually be more effective than the cornering you get from your suspension. So perhaps in future, we're going to start focusing on tire preservation and drag reduction on it instead, because it might just straight up be the better choice for performance gain. But yeah, it looks like everything is pretty much across the table looking good. And if you're curious about how I'm reading these numbers as expertise, the way that this works is that for high speed, this number goes from 7 to 8, which means that to figure out our expertise level, we just take the number after the punctuation here, 64, and that translates to 64%. For medium and lower speed, it's a little bit more difficult. For medium, it goes from 5 to 7, so this number would be 1.27. Then we have to split that on 2, which gives us about 63 and a half. Basically, that would be 0.635. Translate that to percent, 63.5%. And the same here for low speed. We take this number 3 to 5. 130 is the aggregate, the middle, if you will. Then we split that in 2, which gives us 65 again. So yeah, basically 65% expertise across the board or so on these 3. That's generally how you read it for every one of these downforce kill endurance things. High speed is from 7 to 8, 5 to 7, 3 to 5. Just thought I'd have that in there if you were curious. Yeah, everything seems fairly well balanced, if I'm honest. The suspension is a little bit ahead of the rest. Chassis is a little bit behind. I'm a little bit unsure where we should put the CFD, because I was considering using it on the chassis side. So I bought underfloor suspension last year, and the reason for that is very simple. We need to run 2 iterations of these if we want to get full advantage before the first race. Can't really do that with a front wing or rear wing. It's going to become very expensive to rush those projects. I think what we do here is I'm going to take a look at what I can kind of expect from CFD from the suspension here for the side pods. But I am thinking we might just go all in on the suspension. This would be a nice gain here, 4.5% cooling. But honestly, I think getting more tire preservation would benefit us more long term. It's either that or we go all in on the chassis, which is what I kind of think I was planning last time around anyways. So we might actually go in here on the chassis, try and get a little bit more cornering by doing it like this. But also there is a negative by doing this, which is the very simple fact that the chassis takes 10 days to make each. So we'll have to consider that as well. I think I'm going to be very, very boorish here. The chassis would be a good choice because it is lagging a little bit behind the rest. But we're going to do suspension because I want to take a little bit of a closer look at tire preservation this year. And as you can see, this doesn't actually affect tire preservation at the moment. But it should once we get everything sorted. So this should be perfectly fine. With that, we've already added 10% tire preservation, bringing us up to 70%. The main thing, we're not really going to get the full benefit of the CFD here. Look into it from a different perspective, but we're going to give this a go. I still think that it's going to be worth it. We are going to rush this part, and going to be putting 1 extra engineer on it, so we can rush another project before the end of, as soon as this one is done, basically. The chassis, drag reduction, and airflow middle, very common, if you will. Put another rush order in. And for the side pods, we are going to go an airflow middle. For the initial one, we might make another one afterwards, but cooling is going to be very, very nice to have here. And while I could invest in a little bit of top speed, I think for now we're going to use this as our base side pod, and then maybe we'll make a top speed version a little bit later on. Lastly, we're going to, of course, get the underflow going, and here too, we are going to be focusing just all 3 cornering abilities. We could sacrifice one to the benefit of the others. That is true. But honestly, I think we'll just leave it as is. It gives us a nice starting base to work with, and if we feel the need that, if we feel we're lacking any sort of cornering, we can just go ahead and tune one of these down in a different design. So keeping it balanced is just going to make life a little bit easier there. So there we are. I think also we're going to go ahead here and put a couple engineers here on a couple of the other projects. And the reason for this is so that once these 2 projects are done, we can then immediately get started on the front wing and the rear wing. For picker training here, we are going to keep things somewhat balanced still. We're down to 2.6 seconds now after the yearly change. But I'm just going to quickly set up a calendar here. We're going to be trying to get our chance of mistake down, probably down a little bit, get the average here to about 80, and then work on getting our pace of times down before we go into Bahrain. So here we are with our pit crew. We're going to be able to bring ourselves pretty high up here on the error chance, 85% of the way to 100. We are also getting our pit stop times down, probably going to get them down maybe to 2.5 or a little bit close to that by the time we go into Bahrain. This is looking pretty decent so far. Now, we did also poach staff last year, so we have a very, very strong lineup here of staff members, which can be very, very happy with. And again, it's very easy to kind of steal staff in this year's game. Probably should be a little bit harder for the lower rated teams, like we kind of are. But we are on the up and up. We did finish 4th last year, so I guess it does make a little bit of sense, maybe. But yeah, we're going to continue now. We're going to allow these projects to run their course. Then we will get started on this season. Our first assign here has been completed, and it is the underfloor. Finished without any problems. Usually you get an event or two to make your life miserable. We were lucky enough to avoid that. I'm going to go ahead and manufacture that and get started on the front wing. Now, the front wing here, again, is going to be a pretty simple piece of tech. We're going to be focusing mainly on just that low-speed cornering ability, but you can probably see already that the gains are lower than they were last year. The higher expertise levels, the less of a gain really we can snatch from placing sliders, but this alone is enough to put us ahead of the rest when it comes to low-speed cornering, so we're going to go ahead and make this front wing. 2 ticks to right here just ensures that the lifespan is 2 to 4 races rather than 1 to 2. That keeps them usable for a little bit longer. We are going to use engineers in, as you can see, we actually timed it to perfection, which means that the rear wing probably is going to need to be a little bit rushed, unfortunately. But this is going to allow us to get the front wing done without needing to use the rushed engineer setting, which saves us a little bit of money. Now, we probably are going to need to kidnap the engineer that we have on the suspension to help with the rear wing, to get that one done in time. That shouldn't be an issue. We also have our new rosters here for this year, so let's take a look and see if there's any surprises. Norris and Sainz at Red Bull, Drogovic and Piastri at McLaren. So Norris got kidnapped, Drogovic replaced him, Sainz went in as well. To be fair, this is a decent enough Red Bull lineup, but it does beg the question, has Mercedes gone ahead and kidnapped Verstappen? I think the answer to that is probably going to be yes. Hamilton and Ferrari, no one poached him this time around, which is good. We have capped our drivers, Leclerc has also stayed there, and Mercedes has not got Verstappen. They've got Porsche, and yeah, I think we have a funny little bug here. This is one of the bugs in 1.6 where the driver that shows up here, I believe that isn't the driver that's in the actual car. Honestly, let's go through that first and then we can take a look at it, because it is a little bit spoilery. But yeah, he's taken over the lower half of the teams here. We have 10 Zhong Chuangs driving the cars. And that does kind of sound probably a little bit weird, so I apologize if anyone is offended, but that is literally what the game has done. Okay, let's check drivers' overall rating. Verstappen is a free agent. Let me introduce you to Poaching 101. Well, we can go ahead and propose a contract to Verstappen and put him in an Alpine. For those of you who wanted me to put Doohan in the car instead of Ocon, we could do Verstappen. But honestly, I'm going to leave it for now. But yeah, Verstappen is actually a free agent. So I think the logic needs a little bit of fixing here. Tsunoda and Albon is in the Aston Martin. We have Bottas in a Williams. We have Stroll and Kick. Porsche. Daniel and Show in Haas. Behrman has gone to... No. Honestly, I'm just going to see once we get to the race itself, because this is confusing at this point. Like, real confusing. But yeah, Verstappen is a free agent. Very weird. Next up here, we are going to get our chassis finished after my shock of Verstappen died down a little bit. And we're just going to go ahead and manufacture that immediately. We're going to get it done normally over the next 20 days. That should be perfectly fine. And we're also going to go ahead and get started on, as I mentioned, that rear wing project. We are going to take an engineer off the suspension. It's fine. Just need to get that rear wing done in time for the first race. And since we are going to be a little bit more competitive this year, I would invest into DRS. Generally, DRS is going to be a tool to allow you to have an easier time overtaking. F-load sensitivity kind of works in the same way, but it's very weak. So we don't really focus on that. But it is going to help us qualify higher, and it's going to help us with overtaking DRS zones. But generally, apart from that, no real point in investing into it, fortunately. We're going to do similar here to what we did with the front wing, where we go 2 to 4 races in durability. And this is going to be a very minor increase in stats, to be fair. But should be more than good enough for our purposes this year. Putting engineers on, as you can see, we're going to get it done in 34 days, which means we need to rush both wings. But that is acceptable to me. I was going to get side pod and suspension done, but we're going to have to wait with manufacturing them because we don't have slots. That should be fine. Suspension has finished. Let's go ahead and manufacture a couple of those. And we're also going to go ahead here and probably just leave the slot open. What I mean by this is actually very, very simple. We're going to check in now for gains, of course. And we could get another 3% suspension gain here. I kind of forgot we used safety on my suspension, I'm going to be fair. But other than that, we aren't actually getting huge gains anywhere else. So, tire preservation, a little bit of top speed. Safety kind of wasted here, in my honest opinion. So, probably not do what I did. It's more of an experiment than anything else. I'm just going to do this one normally because this is a smaller gain. So, we'll get that sorted as we go. Suspension is delayed by a good 8-9 days here. That's okay. Because honestly, it's going to take us 8-9 days before we can actually start manufacturing it anyways. So that event actually doesn't turn into anything for us. And I was a fool because it was the suspension design that was delayed. The one that's already completed. And the side pods did finish at the expected time. So really, really making a fool of myself here a little bit. Apologies. Yeah. As of the current time, what we're going to be doing now is just getting these parts made. As I mentioned, we're going to have to wait a little bit of time to get that started. And honestly here, we are going to get started on a final side pod design that's going to have cooling, airflow, everything, including top speed. Then we can switch the designs around as we see fit. Just going to double check here that I'm not making a mistake again. Because, yeah, the initial one did not have top speed. As you can imagine, I am recording this episode while I'm quite tired after work and failing on a different concept, so I apologize for any mistakes. Yeah, we're just going to make this one normal too. This is going to just be a different concept that we can use if we want to. But that's basically all of our design for this year done. We're going to be saving money now. We're going to be saving CFD time, everything to focus on research once we get to the middle of April. So let us speed along here. We're going to manufacture parts. We wait for the designs to finish. Before we get that far, however, we have another pit stop training scheduled to sort out, and we get it kind of sorted out nicely here. Going to be perfectly rested going into Bahrain. We're going to end up with 2.5 second pit stops here, 6% chance of making a mistake. That is very, very acceptable to me. Right before we go into Bahrain here, Ocon has a little bit of tension with its engineer. Generally just try and intervene there to solve the issue as quickly as possible. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but most of the time it does result in just the incident solving itself, more or less. We're going to go ahead and make some new front wings. We're just going to get 4 of them put up right away. And we've also gone ahead here now and kind of finished, as I mentioned, our design cycle. We're going to be getting all these designs done towards the end of this week as we go into the next race here, if you will. With that, we also have our first sponsor plan. Generally here, I will once again be focusing on things that affect staff more so than my drivers. And anything that affects CFD Sim, factory, buildings, without it not being the design center, because the design center has been quite buggy, and I just don't want to risk it. So let's go ahead and put up this plan. Now, the rear wing design is also done, and as I mentioned, we are going to need to rush the design, but 275,000 extra paid It's a lot less than the 900,000 for rushing the design. So we're just rushing the manufacturing, to be absolutely clear, instead of the design. We save money by doing it like this. So this has also worked out just fine. We're probably going to start manufacturing more rail wings by the time we go into the first race. I'm going to keep this final slot open here so I can make a decision if we want to make the new suspension or the new side pod maybe with that final slot. So suspension here is done. We'll take a look at it in a second. I just want to take a look here at the side pod first as well. And we've actually just kind of manufactured a completely new car before the first race of the season. And that's kind of the entire point with this strategy. We put in some effort, and by rushing these initial projects, we spent about 2 million on it, yes. But we're able to go to Bahrain with a completely new car. And since the AI generally doesn't do the same thing, you can get a pretty significant advantage going into the first race weekend. Right now, we're not really seeing that, because as you can see here, we're 7th in low speed, 7th medium, 5th in high speed. But if we slap on the new front wing, and also the new rear wing, those numbers might change ever so slightly. We're now 3rd in medium, 1st in low speed. We still have bad top speed, we still have bad DRS effectiveness, but we're now in kind of a situation where we could snatch a potential win here in the season opener, and that would be very, 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 very important for us. Car is still ranked terribly because we have bad turn air tolerance, because we have bad top speed, but I'm also pretty sure that the car performance ranking takes into account things like your acceleration and the engine power, which is things that we don't really have much power over. But that would make sense as to why, in particular the cars that I drive, were ranked so low. Because I have yet, I think, to play a Honda or Ferrari engine in this version of the game. I've started testing a little bit with engines, so hopefully I'll have a guide out on which engine is the best in the future. Mercedes just hasn't failed me yet, so I haven't gotten around to that, basically. Time is a very finite resource at the moment. So 2 kph advantage for Red Bull. You're probably going to be seeing smaller numbers in your save, and the reason for that is very, very simple. It's the fact that they changed the starting point after I started this save to bring every team closer to each other. So you might very well be closer to Red Bull than I am, and if you are doing this yourself in 1.6. But yeah, we aren't too far off. Red Bull is the 3rd quickest team in high-speed corners. We're lacking about 2 kph here, which we can probably find if we really want to. But the goal of this year is just to finish 4th. It is to finish where the board wants us to, snatch a win or 2 maybe, and focus on research so that we can have a car that's an absolute rocket ship next year. Now, again, I'm going to probably go more into this once we start researching properly, but if you do follow this year's research to a T, you're going to have a car that is going to be more or less unbeatable for the next couple of seasons, maybe even 3 or 4 seasons after this one. So do keep that in mind. With that said, though, I think we are more or less ready to head into Bahrain. We're just going to equip that front wing and the rear wing onto the other car. And we're also going to get started here with manufacturing a couple extra rear wings. And also, as I mentioned, I want to take a look at the sideboard here. We're losing a little bit of cornering and engine cooling. But we gain almost half a kph worth of top speed. And for the suspension here, gain a little bit of everything, including tire preservation. So we are definitely going to be switching out to suspension in the near future. And it is probably going to be the thing that we do first. We're probably not going to get it done by Jeddah, but by Melbourne. And once we're done with these rear wing designs, we're probably also going to make that new side pod. We're going to lose a little bit of cornering, but half a kph should make up for it. Should make our car more balanced anyways. It should help us with some of the other races. But yeah, we have a car that is potentially a race winner around here. The estimated performance is 5th. And our sponsors still want us to finish 16th or higher. Now, the reason why Gasly's car is 12th on the grid is because we still haven't put the front wing and rear wing on. But I'll do that in practice before the race itself. Let's see how we do in quali here. So here we are. We have put the new component on Gasly's car. We have put the new components on Ocon's car. Both of them have basically a fresh vehicle at this point. And I thought it would be a good idea to just show this first quali so you can get kind of a better idea of how different our pace is going to be compared to the rest of the grid. Also, we can now do a bit of a roundup here and see who has gone where. So we have Bottas and Sargent at Williams. We can show it has. Alonso has gone to RB with Hulk. Schumacher has found his way into a car with Stroll. Interesting pairing. Tsunoda and Albon in Aston. And yeah, probably the strongest lineups there are straight up just the Red Bull and Ferrari lineups. So they're going to be our rivals this year. But yeah, let's see here what Ocon and Gasly can do on their first flying lap. 26.8 for basically both of them. Gasly a little bit slower again. That toe probably helping Ocon a little bit. But yeah, just a 10 between them. 29.3 should be pretty strong here, potentially pole strong. So I'm curious now to see. Piastri is faster. Oh, maybe we're a little bit getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. But we're definitely getting through this first quali, no problem at all. I don't think we're going to have to send the cars out again. Piastri is basically going to be the only McLaren capable of fighting us, and the other ones that are threatening us here are Sainz and Hamilton. Stroll has put his car in a very surprising 7th, however. And maybe this season is going to be a little bit closer than I first anticipated, which honestly would be a positive thing. But yeah, let's see how the times look once we get closer to the third quali session. I just overestimated our car a tad bit here. 6th and 10th in Q3 is not good. Granted, Gasly had a pretty terrible run. If he had his Q2 time, he'd be ahead of the RBs. But even then, this is not a good showing. We're almost 7/10 behind Sainz, who has put in a masterclass in his third run here. Can we make a comeback during the race itself? I think so, but this has put a little bit of a worry in my vehicle, if you will. I'm worried about the car. But I think if we just run the basic strategy here, which is 2 lights into a full attack medium, done that as kind of quickly as we can, this should still be salvageable. And as you can see here, the strategy planner doesn't really like this, but again, we are planning to burn these tires towards the end of the stints, so that should work out just fine that way. Let's see here what we can do. And don't really need to stay on the mediums for very long, so we are going to do this. It's just the simplest way to get things done. We're going to underfuel, of course, as our pit crew is working, or mechanics rather, are working at lightning speed in the background. We're getting used to that at this point. We are going to run a light from the get-go, and there is, of course, a question there. Is it worth to run light from the get-go? And in my eyes, there is, because you can get the time that we lose in these first 10 laps, we're getting back in the final 5, 6, 7 laps of the stint anyways. And of course, since we are going to go full attack, while others are probably already have pitted, we are going to build up a bit of a tire offset that should allow us to come back later on in the race. It is going to suck, however, if you qualify highly and get overtaken. I can understand that. But in this case, we should be fine. That's kind of what I'm banking on. Lights out, away we go. We are going to stick with high overtake aggression, however. I feel like this year you aren't really getting punished for it as much as you did in 23. That has definitely changed. Gasly is losing out a little bit here, unfortunately. And right now he is kind of just puttering along with Sargent. So a little bit of a poor start here from our drivers. Nothing too serious, but also it's a little bit worrisome, as it is gonna potentially slow us down a little bit. Ocon has retained his place, which is good. Gasly is kind of retaining his place, and honestly, as long as we stay in the DRS train here, this shouldn't be a problem. And we kind of saw there just how much quicker Gasly was as he sped up to the back of the car in front and already has broken away from Sargent. Mainly though just with ERS, that's the thing. ERS is incredibly powerful. I've said this basically every video, but it is. And just like that, we get Albon. Gasly then starts to build a little bit of confidence here. Immediately gets Hulk as well. And honestly, as long as we stay within the Red Bull DRS train while running light, as long as we manage to do that while we are running light for these first few laps, we're going to come out as winners, if you will. Ocon has managed it. Gasly hasn't really. He is getting re-overtaken here by Hülkenberg due to the lack of DRS. But for Hulkenberg, sorry, not for Hulkenberg, for Ocon, it's looking very, very good. So we're going to tune him down, allow him to stay with them. Now, as I mentioned before the race, our car is very, very strong in terms of cornering. So I kind of do expect us to perform fairly well here. Unfortunately for Gasly, though, he has been kind of dislodged, and Hulkenberg is going to be a bit of a nuisance that we're going to have to deal with if we want to try and get back within this DRS train. And for now, we're already saving quite a bit of tire here compared to our rivals, who basically spent twice as much at this point. So this is looking very, very good so far. We're just going to sit back, relax. Even if we go a little bit back and forth here with Alonso, with Ocon, Gasly fighting Hulkenberg, that is acceptable as long as we maintain these tires without incident. And with Schumacher's return, it didn't take long before he had his first incident here. As you can see, he has had an incident in the back here, following him and Show. That's a little bit of a rough incident, but still should be fine. But as you can see, they lost a lot of tire. Both of them are going to need to pit. 8 laps into the first race of the season, Schumacher has his first involvement in an accident. By lap 10, we can see here that Ocon has caught up to the top 5 DRS train. He's doing a wonderful job. And with tires now that are basically 80% versus 50 and 44, he now holds a pretty significant advantage. We are lacking top speed, we are lacking DRS, but our cornering ability and this year's kind of focus on being able to overtake in corners makes us a very, very dangerous car to deal with. That works out just fine. For Gasly here now, the key is going to be to close down onto the pack in front here. He's just 2 seconds behind. There isn't really much stretch yet. 15 seconds down to 18th after 11 laps. So things are working out really, really well for us here. The others have completely destroyed their tires while we've taken care of ours. After Sainz pits here, Ocon is now running in first, although he just got overtaken by Hamilton. He has made it to the front of the grid. Gasly has also attached himself to this main DRS train now. And Sainz has pitted, but here's the thing. He's either going to have to wait for other cars in front of him to pit. In particular, the mediums are still going to be out for probably a couple more laps. And that's going to be huge for us, because that means we can take it very, very chill here. And again, just build up an advantage towards the end. Burn these softs as we get close to pitting. And while we're probably going to come out behind Sainz, just as we've done on this stint, we should be able to build enough of an advantage that we can overtake him by the end. And you kind of see it here now with Ocon running away from Hamilton. Hamilton having a bit of a poor lap though at 37.7. But Ocon now is free of the cars behind and can start building a bit of a gap. And honestly, we would love to do the same here for Gasly. And he's probably going to start doing that. We do want a little bit of energy though. So when we do break free, we can just go full attack. But for now, things seem to be okay as they are. Peak confidence for both our drivers is also going to help them with their performance here. Almost 100 cornering for Gasly. We have a incident here. Is this Schumacher again? It is. It is the same two that crashed the last time around. Schumacher did eat a penalty for that one, and honestly, he's going to eat a penalty for this one too. Locked up, hit another car. And he has actually rearing damage too now. Show as well. So both cars here are basically going to be lapped a few times because of the shenanigans, so to speak. Leclerc does end up pitting, but he does give Hamilton a bit of a tow before he does so. For Gasly here now, I do kind of want to get away from Norris. I don't want to help a Red Bull if we can avoid it. And honestly, with the tire advantage and the twisty section coming up here, I'm pretty sure we can get away from Norris. Honestly, we failed though, surprisingly. But it is getting to the point now where we can go ahead and push these tires a little bit more. Honestly, with the tire degradation that we have at this point, a one-stopper might have been more viable for us. Because we've used 30% in 15 laps. So we could basically stay on these softs for half the race and be down to 40% tire left. So yeah. Tire preservation seems to be pretty decent here. If you can combine it with, say, the smoothness of Norris, you probably have a very, very insane combo that's going to allow you to do a lot of cheeky strategies. For now, though, we're just going to allow this first stint to go. We are going to be pushing. We are going to be trying to create some gaps here like Ocon is doing. I would love to create some bigger gaps here to the medium runners. Sainz is still kind of running in the midfield here. We are a pit stop ahead of him still. So he's definitely losing time getting some overtaking done. He's probably going to go a little bit quicker than us now, though, to be fair. And while that isn't necessarily a positive thing, it's perfectly fine in the current situation. I am going to allow Gasly here to overtake Norris with the help of energy once we get to the DRS zone, as that should be our cue to kind of do a little bit of a breakaway. And he actually gets the overtake done before he gets into the zone, and he does have DRS still. So that is an easy run away from us. Currently 1-2. We're going to see how we look once we actually get to the pit stops themselves. We are going to burn these soft tires absolutely into the ground, though. We've had another incident. Doesn't seem like it is Schumacher this time around. It is actually Russell. And it is Merc on Merc violence in the first race here. Sent his teammate a little bit to shadow run there. Poor Porsche here is getting bullied in his first Mercedes race. We're down to 50% here, and we are retaining basically more or less a pit stop advantage over Sainz. So while our qualifying was horrible, it's actually not a problem right now for us to score points, and actually probably is benefiting us, again, due to the fact that we have a better car than a lot of the cars we qualified behind, and the pace advantage of getting the confidence stats here are definitely helping. As we're getting close down to the pit stops here, we are kind of in trouble, I'll be honest here. Norris is a little bit closer to Ocon than I'd like. And by the time Gasly pits, he's going to come out in the window between Drugovich and Hamilton. So, not the best window, but if you consider the fact that we're 18 seconds ahead of Piastri, and he has used a third or other, because 70% is actually the usable amount of tire, if you want to look at it that way, he's already used half of his tire. He is not going to be much of a problem to us in this race, because again, he's already used most of that soft tire. That's going to put him in a bit of a vulnerable position. Now for Ocon here, I'm actually just going to go ahead and deploy, and we're going to chase down Leclerc immediately. I don't want to have Norris overtake us if we can avoid it, and unfortunately it looks like we can't. Norris also gets DRS, so that is a little bit unfortunate. But there's nothing wrong with staying behind him and recharging our battery a little bit, warming our tires, then getting ready to catch up to the top teams here, because we're just 5 points. We're just 4 seconds off Piastri. Piastri is going to be a little bit further behind, let's be perfectly honest here, but that should not be a problem. He's going to come out, as mentioned, between Drugovich and Hamilton. But yeah, delaying that pit stop a little bit definitely has backfired, as we're now running side by side with Hamilton. But I have no concerns here. We should be able to get back to the front of the grid, as the only one that really has any sort of comparable tire to us is Norris. So we have a huge tire advantage, and I do believe that we might get ourselves a 1-2 here in the season opener. Ocon has done a blinder here and kind of just flown past everyone, to be honest. As you can see, he just got the Red Bull. He's getting the Ferrari at the moment. And he's back in the lead. Now, if you look at Piastri, basically doesn't have tire left. You can kind of get an idea of just how strong Ocon's run is here. Sainz is actually peeled into the pits. Is he going to put in a new set of softs? That's going to be almost 30 laps on those softs. I don't think Sainz is going to be able to manage that. Sainz is going to have to do one more pit stop, and he actually comes out behind the Astons here, so he's going to be delayed by them as well. He's in a 3-man DRS train. Gasly is a little bit further down the road, let's be honest here, but yeah, that's kind of Sainz potentially out of the equation. He's also put on old tires. He's going to need to pit again, while we only have one pit stop remaining, so this is looking very, very good for us. And I think for Gasly now, he should be able to catch up and overtake these guys. Piastri is currently slowing them down tremendously, 2 seconds faster than the previous lap. The incidents continue. We've had yet another crash here. This time it is a new McLaren driver. Bit of a bully move there, and picks up a little bit of damage, I believe, to the front wing. As a result of that, should be Sergeant that he had a little bit of a kerfuffle with, and Sergeant has picked up a penalty. 3 penalized drivers so far in the season opener here. Gasly is currently fighting the Red Bull here, and he does get Norris into the corner, and with that, we're now back into a 1-2 position. Norris is getting very, very close to pit here, and let's be honest, he might be on the pits this lap. He did not. But as you can see here, we have Leclerc, Piastri, Hamilton. All of these guys are probably going to try and go to the end of their tyres. Can't imagine Sainz will do it. Down to 47% after barely 10 laps on these tyres. So you can kind of imagine that he has gone for an extra stop here. So in terms of where we're going to come out when we pit, we are going to come out behind everyone. But remember, we're going to have a huge tyre advantage. The only one we really need to be concerned about here is Leclerc. And while he did have an amazing result in Monza, I don't think he's going to be able to pull off the same thing here. So we're looking very, very good. Honestly, at this point, the best thing we can do is probably just get in and get rid of these tyres, because they are getting kind of in the lower zone here. And we have kind of missed the pit stop with both of our drivers. But this time around, we're actually going to gamble on a double stop. Probably don't need to. It's more risk than it's worth, if you ask me. But why not go for style points as well here? We've had a fairly dominant performance so far. Let us see here what we can do with Ocon and Gasly, as they will now enter the pits shortly. And with 5 seconds between them, it should be pretty much a, very safe double stack. Provided we don't have any incidents. That looked very, very clean, very, very nice. And as I mentioned, we are going to come out behind Piastri. There's no way around that. Sainz still needs to pit. We have fresh softs versus their old mediums. And just to make it absolutely clear here, soft tires have a 6/10 advantage versus fresh mediums. We're going to probably be closer to a second quicker, simply due to the tire choice at this point. So this is looking very, very good. I'm going to go ahead and turn it to light immediately, although I probably would recommend running aggressive for 1 lap to warm them up. I'm just trying to make the most out of the tire life. In this situation, we don't really need to, but I feel like it's still worth it. I like every advantage I can get, and sometimes I err too much on the side of advantage, and it turns into disadvantage. We'll see if that happens here. With 15 laps to go, we have Norris pushing ahead of us here. He's actually overtaking Gasly, but again, he's using far more tire than we are. We are gaining also on Leclerc and Piastri here, although it's not by a lot, but it is a good, 7/10 that last lap. So we should have no problem catching him before this race is over. And again, the more we take care of our tires, the bigger the advantage towards the end here. Probably should try and go for fastest lap, which Sainz has. So if our driver has an opportunity, most likely Ocon, maybe Gasly, he has more energy. We're going to try and snatch that lap back before the end of this race. With about 10 laps to go here, we have caught up to Leclerc. And as you can see, Ocon is launching an attack, going back and forth behind him. And we have another yellow flag. Ocon does get by though. He has DRS to add insult to injury. But even then, we actually have the Ferrari catching up to us. So that is kind of wild. We also saw that Schumacher had another incident. He's been more in the pits at this point than he'd been on the track. But it's a bit of a wild one. Now for Ocon, honestly, the best thing that we can do is probably just harvest behind Leclerc for a lap or two. We have a massive tire advantage. We just need to take care of our position here. We do need Gasly to kind of get a move on. He's currently stuck behind Piastri. But once our fuel gets back to positive, once we get a little bit close to the end here, although let's be honest, we can start pushing now. We already have tested it. We had less tire here with lap 16. We pitted lap 24. So if we really, really want to hit with Gasly, we are going to tell him to attack. We're going to tell him to deploy. Honestly, we're going to wait with the deploy order. We're going to give him a push lap here. See if we can snatch the fastest lap. He has clean air up to Ocon. And using a push lap to get the fastest lap to get rid of Oscar here would also work out really, really good. Now, We'll have to see what we do with Ocon. We do want to get away from Leclerc, of course, but we'll have to figure out a good way to get that done. Because right now, we don't really have a good way to solve this issue. Yeah, we're going to enjoy Gasly's attempt here and fastest lap from the driver's seat. Fuel might become an issue here. We gain about 0.3 back a lap, so we might turn him down to balance halfway through this push attempt, but you can already see 3 seconds now to Piastri. He was just behind him as we got to the main straight. And honestly here, Leclerc is actually going to be the one that slows us down, but he is going to give us DRS for our troubles, so maybe it makes up for it. But yeah, push lap here, definitely paying off. Gasly has one purple sector, he has a green sector, and 22.3 would be a final purple sector. We're also going to get DRS here from our teammate over the line. This kind of does work out at 30.2. I think that is an acceptable fastest lap for now. And honestly, with that, I'm going to go ahead here and have both of them push just a little bit. But honestly, this should get the job done. We can kind of see that here. Both cars have gotten away from the car behind. And at this point, we're going to turn both of them down to no risk taking. And that shouldn't be a problem here. Even if they do back and forth a little bit, I'm not going to interfere too much. We are just that much quicker than our position at this point. So while the quali did leave some concerns with a 6th and 10th in the qualifying here, we definitely have been able to take advantage of tire preservation for one here and smoothness to kind of save more time than I anticipated, but also to create a huge gap to the cars around us. Leclerc and Piastri might actually run out of tire here a little bit, so looks like we had a very, very, very good one. And honestly, with the exception of Schumacher and Show, who kind of had their own demolition derby, they didn't actually lap any other cars here, so a little bit more balance, I guess, on the dev side, maybe. Final lap here now is in effect, and we have 13 seconds on the cars in front. Sorry, behind. With the cars in front. That should ensure a 1-2 finish here in the season opener for Alpine. And Ocon gets the win. Hopefully, he's going to keep that up and not crash like he did last year. But honestly, I think we're going to jump into Jeddah, see what Jeddah has to offer, and then maybe we'll call it here. We might do this season a little bit more condensed with a focus on research. But I want to see how we perform in Jeddah first before we make a decision. And of course, the question is going to be, should we go ahead and snatch a free agent Verstappen? Which makes no sense because I don't think he starts with a 1-year contract. So Red Bull replaced Verstappen. Yes, let that sink in for a second. Yeah, Norris Sainz ends up 5th and 6th. We have Leclerc in 3rd. Piastri is still a bit of a danger. So maybe I've underestimated a little bit of, the danger picture here. Schumacher though back, and Causing Mayhem is an interesting side dish, if you will. And we also do get a lot of money for finishing 16th or above, aka a 1-2. With that said, though, we have Jeddah in just 4 days, so that should be fairly interesting. Unfortunately, we couldn't solve the driver engineer tension with Ocon and Packett. That is just something we'll have to deal with. Now, because we have races this month, it shouldn't be too difficult to just set up a quick training schedule. Like so. I am going to try and get the error chance to 90 across the board. Rather the error chance skill. And then we'll try and lower the estimated pit stop times a little bit more again. This screen, I will admit, in 1.6, this screen has become a lot smoother. It used to be very unresponsive. We had to kind of click and then wait half a second for it to really kind of take over. So I'll give them credit. Credit is due. This screen feels a lot better now. And that is a very, very nice thing. Pit stops are finally going to go over under 2.5 seconds. I don't know why I'm saying things the wrong way around today. Probably, as mentioned, just a tad tired, but it'll be fine. Here we go. Okay, this looks good. Let's get that to the post office. We're going to go ahead here and go to Saudi Arabia. But As you can see, we have a new ATR period. You don't need to use this one for design, because if we take a look at the calendar here, 14th of April is when that new research period open. We basically have 2 weeks from then to use our current CFD period. We're going to use it on research because it's literally the most efficient use of our CFD window time. Manufacturing is complete as well, which means we should probably start some new project just to make sure that we actually have a stock of parts. In this case, I think we might want to go ahead and make this one. It would be good to have a little bit more top speed. Let's manufacture a couple of the new spec side pod. And also, we're already making new spec suspension. So the only other thing here that I really need to make is going to be an extra chassis and some front wings. So let's get that chassis going. That should be us sorted. Manufacturing front. But yeah, I'm going to jump into Jeddah. Let's see if we qualify just as poorly as last time. And if we can improve just as much as we did in Sakir. So while quality did go a little bit better, we are still 5th, 6th. Third quickest qualifier. We have Ferrari behind us. We have, surprisingly enough, both McLarens ahead of us, so Drogovic here. Maybe not as bad of a choice as I initially thought. And Norris and Sainz, 1-2. Very common occurrence to have Rebel 1-2 here. We're a little bit closer this time around, though. Just 5 tenths instead of 7, so I guess we'll take that. Now, Jeddah is generally just a place where you do a one-stopper, and if you have, in our case, pretty decent tire preservation, that definitely is going to be the case. Now, how you do that one stopper is up for debate, and in our case here, we can actually do a soft to hard, light to attack. Can probably also do a bit of a combination here of an aggressive medium into a full attack hard. Keep things a little bit more spicy if we really, really wish. And as you can see, it's going to be about the same in terms of pace. But the question here that I have is actually going to be, how would a light medium look in terms of getting pace out of a hard? It does not look like that's really gonna work, honestly. But again, the fact that we have a good enough degradation at this point where we could theoretically get through Jeddah on a medium tire, this is going to be a fun season. Just to mess around with the tire degradation. So definitely something that I probably would already just say. Sacrifice the quartering of your suspension, go tire degradation, go top speed, and your drivers will probably thank you. Now, I think what we do here is probably run a medium or standard. I think that's going to be the play here. Well, I would love to use the soft. I think running a medium on standard and then attacking towards the end is going to be the play here. That way we are ensuring that we don't fall too far behind. It is semi-hard to overtake around here, I guess you could say. So we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're going to struggle with overtaking if we can avoid it. And apparently also we have the other fun bug here at Jeddah where everything turns black. You can kind of see the shadows working here in the background, particularly on this screen. Well, you can see one man working, and that's because he has a flashlight. Clearly, we have a power outage here in Jeddah currently. But he's still working tirelessly on the car. What a hero. Clearly not afraid of the dark, as they say. But yeah, let us jump in and get through this race weekend. This is probably going to be the last race weekend of this video. But as I mentioned, we might speed up some of the remaining seasons, if you will. Okay, Red Bull, McLaren, Alpine, Ferrari. Aston, what a lineup. We have a decent start here. Ocon getting a little bit of an advantage over Drogovic. Gets himself up into 4th. We have a couple of soft runners here. I kind of question how the AI's degradation is going to be here. Norris might be in trouble. Same here for Drogovic. But for, looks like Gasly's in good position. Looks like Ocon's in good position. And at this point, he's basically just getting ready to strike. Let's be honest. with how close he is basically the second you give me a chance, I'm going by you. And he's already lost 2 seconds to the cars ahead. So yeah, he is... I don't understand how he qualified that high if he's losing 2.5 seconds in 1 lap. He must be on always defend. Has to be. It's the only thing that makes sense. He's doing a good job though, defensively here, slowing Gasly down quite a bit. But with DRS now on this lap, we should have no problem sailing by him. That's kind of what I'm counting on. And honestly, for Ocon again, even if he is technically a little bit slower than the rest here right now, it's not an issue because the others are burning their tires more than we are. And we'll be able to come back towards the end of this race like we usually do. Yeah. Drugovich here is playing a 10 out of 10 defensive game. For at least these first 2 couple of laps. We do now have DRS, so that should allow us to just fly by him. That's exactly what we do. Question is just now, can we stay ahead, or is Leclerc now, who followed us through, going to overtake us? And honestly, it doesn't matter much to us. At this point, having Leclerc ahead of us other than Drugovich is probably better. So while Gasly is going to struggle a little bit here, I think we are going to just run him on harvest for a couple of laps. Probably are going to have to put him back to neutral immediately though, because he fell out of DRS the second I even mentioned the word harvest. And he should be maybe, yeah, down to 7th now. We're going to have to put in some work to get him back up to the front of the pack, but that shouldn't really be a huge concern at the moment. Gaps still aren't terribly huge, and I can slow down and micromanage if I see it in need. Right now, I think Gasly has DRS. Nope, clearly he did not. So he just got immediately re-overtaken. But yeah, we need to have Gasly run top up. We're going to recharge. We're going to try and get away from the other cars here. But right now, it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a hard time ahead of us. We've unfortunately had an incident here involving Gasly. Let's see what happened.
There's a big shunt ahead.
That kind of sucks. We lost a couple of positions. We picked up some front wing damage. Question here is now, do I want to gamble with Gasly? Because the pack is still really, really close together. So what we could do here for Gasly is actually put him on a bit of a alternate strategy that would be slightly insane in the sense that we put him on a hard. We pit him this lap, repair the front wing, then we do something like this. As you can see, it's going to be slower than this strategy, but considering that Gasly now most likely is going to have a confidence issue as well, not really an issue, but he lost all his confidence, I could see it be worth it to just replace the front wing. Where exactly do you pick up damage? How massive is it? So it's the left side. Yeah, just a shade of half of the front there. Okay, we're keeping him out. There's no point switching him just for that little bit of damage. He should be fine. It's gonna suck a little bit for the cornering speed, but it should be acceptable. But it's also fun to try different strategies here, and trying an aggressive strategy around here would be kind of entertaining. The problem with doing this though is that we're putting ourselves in danger if there is another incident after we switch tires and everything. I think we do it though. It just sounds like fun. So let us take Gasly here. We're gonna do a little bit of a gamble, a little bit of a side project here. Ocon is in a good position still. 4 seconds, a couple of seconds off the leader. For Gasly here, we're gonna get him into the pits here. Switch out that front wing, and hopefully, he comes out. He's gonna be at the back of the grid, yes, but he should be able to undercut most of the pack. And that's gonna be the goal here. Rick needs to pit. Shea needs to pit very, very soon. They could be problematic to deal with, but I think we'll be fine. Looks also that we are going to be driving a... Never mind. The car's teleported back on. Looks like we're going to go for pod racing there for a second as well. Are we going with pod racing in Jeddah? And the answer is no, we're not. So yeah. We could actually do just a no-stop with this now. We're going to burn these hards, and we're going to try and get Ghastly back up into the points. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but it should be fine. And Okone, as mentioned, he is nicely situated right now. We can just keep him where he is and then burn his tires towards the end of the stint. And he should be perfectly placed to not only just do overtakes like that one, but to get another race win here. So I'm looking forward to that. Show is pitting. And Ghastly is getting closer to the menace that is Schumacher. Once he clears Schumacher and Porsche, he's going to have quite a bit here of free air. And if he gets back up to peak confidence, any time lost behind these two should be quickly regained. As we have another yellow flag. Quickly solve though, so it's just a very simple lockup from Leclerc. Nothing too major there. There we go. Schumacher dealt with. Next up, Porsche, and then Stroll. So Gasly's actually doing fairly well so far. He is half a minute off the lead here. That is basically what happens when you not only pit, but you switch your front wing. As you can see, 20 plus, say, 5 seconds, 25 seconds. So currently it would be about 4 seconds off the lead if we had him run with Ocon, basically. But as you can see here, Hamilton has pitted. He has come out ahead of us. Does he have tires? Does not look like he has tires. He has no... Basically, this is also funny with the pod racing bug. Hard tires seems to be far less affected than regular tires, if you will. And that is a little bit interesting. Now, Sainz did come out ahead of us here. Hamilton's out ahead of us, so we haven't actually been able to get that super undercut that we wanted. We did kind of undercut most of the other cars here. We also had to do some overtakes, of course, that has slowed us down. But we have gotten confidence back. We have gotten one of the goals here kind of completed. And while we're not really in a great position to get a win, if you consider the fact that Piastri is on a medium tire, Leclerc is on a medium tire, and they've pitted, they are look to be doing two-stoppers. So this could be very, very good for us. And by the time Alonso and Tsunoda pits, Gasly will be ahead of both of those as well. So Gasly is not in a bad spot right now. He's actually looking very, very promising. We do need to do that extra pit stop, but so do a lot of other cars here. And if we can catch up to them over the course of this stint, then we'll have much of our job kind of done already. For Ocon now, we're just going to burn these medium tires as much as possible. Then we'll jump onto the hard tire till the end of the race. But yeah, so far I'm very, very happy with how things have gone, with the exception of that small incident. We have a safety car, and that has actually benefited us a little bit here, because Gasly is getting to the point right now where we are going to need to consider pitting him. But Ocon going long has actually paid off immensely. And honestly, it probably would have paid off immensely for Gasly if we'd done the same. We didn't. It sucks. We're just going to have to put him on a soft tire. And honestly, for Ocon here, I'm a little bit undecided what would be best for him, to put him on a soft tire or a hard tire. So we shall consult the archives and see what they have to say about which strategy is going to be quicker. And honestly, looks like this one is going to be faster, purely just due to the fact that we can run the hards on full attack for the remainder of the race. So we're going to respect that. It is going to be a safety car. It is going to slow things down a little bit. And in particular, it's going to make things interesting due to tire history. So Sainz is on a hard. He's probably going to stay on that hard. But Alonso doesn't have one. Russell is on one. I think also Russell is too close to the car. But what we're going to be seeing here is probably everyone on a hard tire by the end of the safety car. So there's no negatives really by putting Ocon on it. There's no real negatives here by putting Gasly on a fresh soft. And it is Russell that is the cause. He's kind of parked in a dangerous spot though. You would imagine that might be a red flag. But it is actually just a safety car. Now, that's the destroyed rear wing. I want to see what he did. So he just hit the wall and almost destroyed my game. That's a little bit unfortunate. It's also a bit poor timing for us when that happened, I'll be honest, because we need to go all the way around. We haven't been collected by safety car yet, so it shouldn't really be a huge deal. Gasly is running with Hamilton. Ocon should be able to pit here and come out ahead with relative ease, unless he has an incident. 2.3 seconds, he's fine. Gasly now is going to be the interesting one. Sainz stays out, kind of like we anticipated. Hamilton comes in alongside us. Let's see if Gasly has the better stop. He does not. We also have the 3 medium runners here. Alonso as well, just staying out. That's going to hurt a little bit. So we didn't actually benefit a huge amount in terms of placement. We lost 4 places by pitting. But we have the fresh tyre now, and honestly, we just need to pick our way through these cars. Sainz is going to be slow towards the end. Hulk, Albon, Grug is going to be the same. Same here with Alonso. Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri are going to be the challenge that Gasly has to face, as he is now also one of the hoverboard boards. But this has also benefited us in the sense that we're getting fuel back. So we should be able to push towards the end of this race weekend. Let's see. No one is lapped. So it's just when this safety car is over, we get back to racing form. And there we are. Safety car over. We're going to have Gasly here go for full deploy from the get-go. We're going to keep that high overtake aggression. And for Ocon, for him, literally, take advantage of the better tires, create a gap to Sainz, and fly out of there if you can. That's going to be his... that's going to be like his keywords here. Get away from Sainz. Don't let him overtake you into the first corner, please. That is, that's atrocious. Okay, run neutral. If we need to be behind Sainz, so be it. Save resources, try and get the overtake done later. For Gasly, we are once again seeing the same as we saw with Drugovic at the start of the race, where we are kind of looking for an opportunity to get an overtake done. Just a little bit slow in the top speed to pull it off. Yeah, a bit of a shame there for Ocon here that he couldn't keep things going on the restart. Not really a huge problem, but a little bit frustrating, I'm not going to lie. For Gasly here, I think at this point with DRS, we just slow down the energy usage. And we're going to allow DRS to do the job here, as Alonso's already falling out of DRS of the car ahead of him again. But yeah, for Ocon, managing our tires behind Sainz is also not a terrible idea. Basically, if we can't get away from the car in front, staying behind it, building up a tire delta, or rather tire advantage, is a very, very strong strategy. Like, Sainz can burn his tires as much as he wants. Piastri can burn his tires. Leclerc can burn his tires. As long as we're in that same DRS train, when we get to the last 5 laps of the race, we can take advantage. Although we get the overtake done like nobody's business when I start talking about that. Right, Gasly has also gotten his overtake done. He's probably not going to stay ahead, let's be honest. It's the DRS zone. He did actually manage to pull that off, which is very nice. But he's going to have a hard time with getting anything out of this race now. There's still 17 laps to go, don't get me wrong. But he's going to have to manage to catch up to the cars in front, which he's doing magnificently at the moment. And then he's going to need to do some overtaking. He ran a 31.8 last lap. So, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit... maybe I'm underestimating the tires a little bit here. That is an insane gap that Piastri has instated there. 3 seconds? What happened when I looked away for just a second here? Oh, that tells us we need to go on the attack and close him down before he gets away. 29.1. So he just really, really pushed it that lap. That makes sense. Gasly is doing his own thing here, just going up the order, which is nice to see. Let's see if we can get my Hamilton here, use a little bit of deploy. Honestly, this is not the best place to use it. Yeah, for Ocon, we need to break free and chase down Piastri, and it needs to happen now. So, let's see what we can do here. There we go. Now we overtake him on the main straight. Rather, the pit straight. And then we use energy to try and create a gap. Unfortunately, we fail, so we're going to have to try again later. The top speed DRS is kind of biting me in the ass right now, I'll be honest. But it's just when we run close like this, it becomes an issue. And as you can see, Norris is closing down on Piastri anyway, so it's not a bad place to be right now behind him. So we're going to tune down a little bit again. We should still be able to close him down before the end of this. But yeah, I'm going to manage a little bit more like this, and we'll see where we stand when we get a little bit close to the end. Gasly, hopefully we'll be able to get a couple more overtakes done in the near future. We're getting close to the end there, 5 laps to go. We are still running with Piastri and Leclerc. We're trying to recharge the battery a little bit here in order to get an advantage towards the end. Fuel is also back on the positive side. Gasly is chasing down the cars in front here, but I think going attack is still a little bit premature. Probably going to wait a couple more laps before we do so. But honestly here, even if we get Sainz, it's going to be very difficult to get Norris. And unfortunately, Gasly's incident most likely pushed him off the podium. If you remember, this is about 8 seconds slower. The safety car also kind of invalidates that, let's be honest. But that's going to be my excuse. Yeah, it looks like we're going to be fighting for 5th, maybe 4th with Gasly. So he's going to have a little bit of work ahead of him there. And we have Ocon overtaking Piastri while recharging. So that works out amazing for us. Now, with an almost full battery, we can probably go ahead and push if we get Leclerc and stay the main straight. That's going to be the play here. And for Gasly, we're still going to just run a little bit of harvest before we start really using our tires. With DRS, we should be able to do this quite safely. Even so, look at Sainz's tires. We have such a huge tire advantage that he's going to collapse by the end of this for sure. Okay, we have gotten Leclerc, but I think Leclerc is going to get us back. So for Ocon, running top up behind him wouldn't be a bad idea, but he actually gets the overtake done. Rather, stays ahead. So with 3 laps to go here, we're going to try and pull a daring. Daring kind of push here, where we try and get away from the Ferrari. And we might be able to pull it off here, by the looks of it. For Gasly here, he has gone back to full energy. Going to turn him down a little bit. We're also going to give him the full attack now. It's a little bit late, as I've been distracted with Ocon. But Ocon is not actually quick enough to give them the slip. So that's a little bit worrying. And we are probably going to be fighting a DRS battle to the end of this race. So we're going to have to try and manage a little bit. Maybe run top up. Maybe even a little bit of full harvest here. In order to have energy to fight with. For Gasly, however, he is going to start to kind of trying to get Sainz there, then Norris, then Hamilton. But yeah, 4th place really is the best that he can hope for. It's no secret, it's not a joke. It is just the reality of the situation. As it gets Sainz on the outside there, Sainz with basically no tires at this point, 34%. Norris is going to have the exact same issue. So Gasly is looking really, really good, although fuel is a bit of a concern there as well. The fact that we're running side by side into the final corner is bad because Ferrari DRS. But Ferrari overtaking us is not necessarily a bad thing, but since we kind of own the corner, they can't really do anything. I'm going to give Gasly DRS energy here because we are running out of time to get this move done. And I do need to get Norris done pretty quickly to ensure that we can get Hamilton. And while this hasn't been a perfect race by any means of the imagination, that should be good enough that we'll be able to kind of get both and then get away. And if we have like a weird crash with Piastri or Leclerc, we can have something change towards the end. This is not good though. We're about to start final lap and we're getting double overtaken. That could be the nail in the coffin for us. I didn't think they would do that. I focused a little bit too much on Gasly. This is very bad now. Because we just lost 2 positions in 1 overtake. For Gasly, I'm just going to leave him on the ploy. He's just going to have to do his own thing. We're going to be focusing here on getting, hopefully, the first place of the hoverboard championship back here with Ocon. Fuel is also, of course, a bit of a concern, but we definitely did lose out it. They suddenly became really, really quick. So I needed to break the gap there a little bit. I failed. And now Leclerc also has DRS here as we head into that final corner. Go on, send it.
Okay, that's good. Two currently.
Looks like we don't have enough. Is Piastri going to get us? No. We do get second place.
Checkered flag.
Gasly should be able to hold Hamilton off here, maybe. Nope.
Good job, guys.
Damn.
Thank you so much, guys.
The fact that we ran out of energy there definitely hurt. For 2000s. Bit of a strategy blunder there, I'll be honest, towards the end. We probably should have managed our tires better. I probably got a little bit too cocky since we did get a 1-2 in Sakir. But it does kind of prove that this season is also going to be at least a little bit of competition. So we might focus on some of the races. Let me know what you think. Looks like this is going to be an interesting year. That's always kind of fun. But yeah, Leclerc picks up a win. Piastri third. Hamilton fourth. Ferrari definitely are strong here. The Red Bulls made strategy mistakes. Let's just leave it at that. Other than that, they should have finished way better than they did. But yeah, as the other teams survive the car, we could at least have some fun fights on track while we do research. But we'll be probably revisiting that next time. And as I mentioned, should we go ahead and pick up free agent Max Verstappen? Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.